The greatest thing I did for my productivity was to decrease the number of hours I worked. Let me repeat that for you. The single greatest thing I did for my productivity was to decrease the number of hours I worked. This statement may seem absurd to those of you who aren't familiar with the concept of deep work. And rightly so, because the hustle cultures and the grind mindsets of today have brainwashed the entire population such that in order to get ahead in this rat race that everyone has turned their entire lives into, the only answer anybody has is to increase the number of hours they work. If you're in a highly competitive environment and you see somebody working 7 hours a day, an obvious response might be to start working 8 hours a day. Somebody who sees you working 8 hours might decide to start to work 9 hours a day. And this cycle does go on indefinitely until you reach a point where you start to significantly hurt your efficiency. This idea isn't completely crazy though. It does make sense on some level. So let's first try to understand the thinking behind this approach. Let's say you have a factory that produces, say, 1,000 t-shirts a day. And right next door, there's another factory, a competing factory that produces similar t-shirts and is producing 1,200 t-shirts a day. The simplest and the most obvious response to that, in order to beat your competing factory, would be to increase the number of hours you're working your factory. If you're working it 10 hours a day, you might decide to start working it 11 hours a day, 12 hours a day even. And that does make sense, right? It's a completely logical thing to do. The problem arises when we try to increase our output the same way we would try to increase a machine's output. The important distinction we need to make here is that our brains don't work the same way machines do. I think it's important to clarify the meaning of deep work at this point. In my opinion, deep work is essentially work done in the flow state. The flow state is something that we've all experienced at some point or the other. It's something that you experience when you're doing anything that you're really passionate about, be it playing a sport that you're really interested in, or dancing away to your favorite music, or even reading a book that you've been wanting to read for a long time. When in the flow state, you lose all sense of time, and a couple of hours later are just left looking at the time, wondering where it all went. Another thing I've noticed about the flow state is that it's kind of meditative, in the sense that when you're doing that one activity, you're so zoned into it that you're not thinking about anything else. In that moment, you're not feeling hungry or bored or even excited for that matter. The only thing on your mind is the activity that you're doing. This flow state that we experience, firstly, very infrequently, and secondly, only when we're doing something that we're really passionate about, is what we want to replicate in our everyday work. And it's work done in this very state that we refer to as deep work. Research after research has concluded that the vast majority of the population can put in a maximum of 4 hours of deep work a day, if that. And you know what the funny thing is? As soon as I said that, most of you thought that you do not lie in that vast majority. That's your ego talking. It doesn't mathematically make sense for most people to not lie in the vast majority, does it? Let me share with you my story of how I got acquainted with deep work for the first time and what my experience was like. Exactly about a year ago, I graduated from college, and I'm not gonna lie, it was probably the scariest day of my life. Till this day, I always had a purpose. First to get through school, and till now to get through college. I'll admit I didn't do a great job at it, but at least I had a direction. And now suddenly out of nowhere, we were all thrown into the real world with no clue what to do next. I realized quite quickly that with my grades, I wasn't going to land a half-decent job. I realized that the only variable left that I could still work on was the GMAT. And I decided to give it my 100%. I decided to compensate in the next few months for the past 20 years of studies that I'd skipped. Over the next few months, I tried every study tactic, every hack, every trick in the book. This was the first time I was trying to study, so I was figuring out what methods worked for me and what didn't along the way. I had always been a late sleeper, so I began by trying to study entire nights and sleep through major portions of the day. Okay, no wait, I started off without a routine. Naive me thought that he could just study whenever he felt like it. Luckily, I realized quite quickly how tremendously stupid that was, and that's when I decided to start following a routine. I started by trying to pull all-nighters, but saw quite quickly that it wasn't working for me and decided to start studying once I woke up in the morning. The problem was that I used to wake up at 11:30 a.m. I gradually kept pushing that time earlier and earlier until I had a timetable that I felt quite comfortable with. I would wake up at 7:30 a.m., freshen up over the next 20-25 minutes, and be on my study table at 8 a.m. sharp. Now, all my life, I had seen all the toppers and the nerdy people I knew study for entire days. So, without putting much thought into it, I figured that that was the way to go about it. I decided to study from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. every single day. This went on for quite a while, and I didn't see any problem with it. Luckily, for about a month before I started with my study phase, I had been working on building healthy habits and had started to regularly go to the gym every day and ensure that I got my 8 hours of sleep every night. And with my recently started 12-hour study sessions, these activities didn't stand a chance. I dropped gymming as soon as I started this routine, and within a few days, my 8 hours of sleep a night had gone for a toss. A little while in, I suppose because of dropping these two habits, I started to notice a significant decline in my ability to focus. A few more days in, I noticed myself getting very irritable quite often, and by around 3-4 weeks in, I had completely lost all interest in my life. And at one point, I even started to give up on my hopes of getting a good GMAT score. It was about at this point that I can't even tell you what it was, but something within me said that this can't be it. This can't be the way to get it done. There has to be a better approach. There has to be a better way. I started by deciding to start going to the gym again. I would start studying at 8 a.m., go to the gym, come back, have lunch, and then sit down again until 8 p.m. To my surprise, despite reducing the number of hours I was studying, I saw my productivity increase substantially. Next, I decided to move the end of my study block a little earlier so that I would have some time to chill in the evening, so that I could go to sleep on time and get my 8 hours. It was around this time that I heard of the concept of deep work for the first time. I heard how the average person was capable of putting in a maximum of 4 hours of deep work a day. I decided that by 12 p.m. I would finish my studies for the entire day. No matter how little I had gotten done, no matter how much more I could do, I would stop at 12 p.m. It took my brain a few days to adjust to this, but once it did, it felt like I'd become a productivity master. I swear to God, I was getting more done in these 4 hours than I ever even did in my 12 hours. There were a lot of factors at play over here. First of all, the excitement of getting done with all my work by literally by noon and having the entire rest of the day to enjoy, to have fun, to do whatever the fuck I wanted to, as opposed to the dread of knowing that I had to sit in front of my books for the entire day and have nothing to look forward to. Secondly, the fear. I had taken the responsibility. I had set a goal to get a good GMAT score, and it was my responsibility to make it come true. If I didn't get enough done on a daily basis, I would be fooling nobody but myself. So you see, this video is based entirely on personal experience that is backed by thousands of researches. Your brain is capable of a maximum of 4 hours of deep work a day. Now it's up to you whether you extract that output with 4-5 hours of focused work, or you put in the next 12 hours doing unfocused, distracted work to get the same output. When you have an exam or an important deadline coming up, the normal way is to grind. The normal way to go about it is to sacrifice sleep, to stop going to the gym, to stop spending time with your family and friends, to basically give up everything in order to have more time to put into your work. I want to suggest a better approach. Begin by ensuring that you get your 8 hours of sleep every night so that you have the energy to operate efficiently throughout the day in the first place. Go to the gym, exercise, go for a run, meditate, do all of these things, especially when you have a deadline coming up. Do all the activities that are scientifically known to improve your concentration, your ability to focus. I've heard people say that this is not the time to focus on the gym, or that you'll have your entire life to sleep and rest once you made something out of your life. My only response to that is that I'm doing all of these activities so that I can work better. Not in the you'll regret not working on your health in your 30s and 40s kind of way, but in the sense that I know for a fact that if I skip the gym in order to work a couple of extra hours today, my output at the end of the day is going to be worse than that if I just gone to the gym. And with the few hours that you have left after all these activities, put in deep, focused work. Work like these few hours are all you have, because they really are all you have. Try this approach for a couple of weeks, and I promise you, your life will never be the same again.